Let's unbox the Black Series 6-inch figure of Wrecker from the Bad Batch Season 1. Varykino. If it's Star Wars, we collect it. Hello there, thanks for visiting Varykino. Today I'll be continuing our ongoing series celebrating the Bad Batch animated show by opening up the Season 1 version of Wrecker from the Black Series line. I have already opened up the rest of Clone Force 99 in their original Season 1 gear. Wrecker is the last one, so it's time to complete the squad. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Coming up very soon, I'll get him out of the packaging and take a closer look at all of the cool details of this figure and compare him to the Mercenary 2 version from Season 2. Very keen to see the differences there. But first, let's take one last look at the packaging. Of course, we have the classic Black Series style packaging. This is a deluxe figure, so it is wider than standard. He is a bulkier body type and he comes with a few accessories. This is going to be a fun one. We have that dark red accent stripe here for the series. It says Star Wars The Bad Batch. The black text is always just a little bit harder to read. We have the character name here, Wrecker, here on the side, and we can see the figure with all of his accessories. I love the expression of this particular figure. I think it captures the humor of the character really well. On the side, we have a fun art here of Wrecker wearing his armor with his sort of knuckles together. I think that that's really quite fun. The color here is quite dark, so it does obscure the artwork a little bit here. We've got a little bit of a box nick here, a little bit of box damage, a little bit unfortunate, but we'll take what we can get. Here we can see it says Wrecker down at the bottom in black text. Again, a little bit harder to read against that dark color, but it is an accent color from their costumes on the show, so it does make perfect sense to use on the packaging. We have that same color stripe here on the back. You can see that Wrecker is number 05 from the Black Series Bad Batch collection. We have another insert of the armor here. I think it looks really cool. We can see his very unique helmet there and his big scale armor. Really cool artwork here. We have a little bit of a bio for the character of Wrecker. The boisterous bruiser of the Bad Batch, Wrecker has brute strength that makes him capable of lifting a clone gunship without any help. His muscle and size are matched only by his temper and an equally pronounced sense of humor, which I think is a really fun way to describe him. And we have that bio repeated in a few different languages. Standard copyright warning text here. We have a little bit of a window at the side and at the top, which is great for letting in light to see the figure if you're keeping it carded in its box. But I'm going to be opening this one up, so let's get stuck into it. So now I have Wrecker and all of his accessories out of the packaging. We can take a closer look. And one thing I wanted to point out, I love how sturdy these bulkier Black Series figures are. Straight out of the box, he stands, no wobbles. It's just fantastic. I really like it when my Black Series figures stand well on their own because they're a little bit harder to put on stands compared to the 3.75-inch action figures. I love the Clone Force 99 armor of the Bad Batch. I love the details, the weathering. It's always a delight to go over the Black Series figures of these characters, and I like Wrecker. I think he is so fun, and he's got very unique armor for a clone trooper. There is so much to go over here. Of course, this is his Season 1 version, so we have that Bad Batch Clone Force 99 imagery on some of his accessories, like this shoulder piece. It also appears on his backpack and helmet, which we'll look at very soon. I really like the silver weathering that we've got here, accenting the sort of high points on the armor. We've got silver around on the chest and shoulder pieces. We've even got some here on the thighs going down to the knees as well. Really does give it a bit of a depth, because if we look really close at the sculpting of his armor, we can see all of this battle damage that is in the molding, in the original sort of sculpting, and someone hasn't just sort of carved this in after the fact. I love that it is part of the sculpt. We can see all of the sort of pitting and surface texture here of the legs and armor. It really does make these figures look more detailed, look like they have seen damage in battle. We can see that Clone Force 99 here on the other shoulder as well. And we have that deep red accent paint for some trim pieces here on the forearms, this stripe and accent trim here on his big chest piece and on his other forearm as well. Generally speaking, he is a little bit more of a two-tone character. We've got mostly the same kind of grey with a few little accent points. We've got a bit of a black undersuit, but it does kind of disappear a little bit with the dark grey of his armor. But that is the color scheme that is from the show. Hasbro's not going to switch that up just to make a toy look a little bit more vibrant. We've got that red stripe running through the front of the shin armor here as well. I really like it. And of course, we've got it some on here on the pouches, on his belt at the front. Really fun. Gives it sort of a dark, moody atmosphere. These guys mean business. They are an elite squad. I think it's really fun to have this sort of dark clone trooper armor because, of course, most of the clones have a base white armor. I really like the dark, sort of a gritty color scheme for the Bad Batch. We can really see the weathering on the back of this plate here. I love the detail there, honestly. This must take so much time to sort of add all of this extra detail. We can even see it on the boots, on the back of the shins. I love this level of detail. It really does take it from being a plastic toy to something that you could put, you know, out in the wild like those really brilliant toy photographers, and it starts to trick your eye about whether you are looking at a small 6-inch toy or a full-scale person in costume. I think it's really fun when the details are really that fine that it starts to trick your eye as to what scale you're looking at. Oh, I love this one. So many detail points. My eyes are just going all over looking at all of the little details that are just scattered all over this trooper. Fantastic. And I just love how sturdy he looks. Everything's going together nicely. So let's take a closer look at his face because, of course, Wrecker is kind of the, I don't want to say comedian, but he is a lighter sort of point of humor. There's a lot of comedy to his character in the show. So I love the expression they've got here. He's kind of smiling, kind of smirking. I love it. Of course, he's got his sort of white eye over here, and we have that sort of wound scar damage here on the left side of his face, radiating out from his ear. I really like that. It's not accented with paint, it is simply a raised texture, so it's catching the light and using shadows to kind of give it a little bit of detail there. I like that it's not too over the top and sort of painted like it's sort of red and raw or anything like that. And of course, we've got a little bit more paint here for his good eye and on his lips. Overall, I think this is a fantastic expression because the animated show has a very particular style to the faces. Black Series, I feel, tends to do a slightly more realistic interpretation, so it's not a true representation of exactly how he looks in the show, but it looks like a very good real-world interpretation of what Wrecker would look like. So he's going to look very good alongside your other Black Series figures from the live-action shows. I think this looks really fun. I can hear his voice in my head. D. Bradley Baker, the voice actor that does such a brilliant job on the Bad Batch. I love how he brought every of the Bad Batch characters to life with all the subtle differences in his performance. And I can hear his voice as I'm looking at this face. Absolutely amazing.
I like to do Wrecker because he wrecks my voice.
So, I love the detail on this figure. It kind of reminds me, the heft of it reminds me of the Darth Malgus figure. That is a fantastic Black Series figure. Absolutely love that one. This one sort of feels in that same sort of vein. I love the heft of this chest. This is just a very thick Black Series figure in terms of the chest here. I understand why it is a Black Series deluxe figure. We've only got 4 accessories here, but he is just a lot more plastic, say, compared to the Omega figure from the same line. She is, of course, a standard figure. So I'm just going to check out the articulation very quickly. He's got very big shoulder armor pieces, so I'm curious to see if these are going to impact. They are flexible, and I can sort of move them around. You can see that they are sort of attached at the top. We've got a little bit of flexibility here, but I don't like to stress the joins here too much. Certainly don't want to break anything off my new Black Series toy. So I don't feel like I'm going to be able to get this one completely up. I think it's going to sort of bend it a little bit. Okay, that's not too stressful. I'm always a bit worried that I'm going to create too much stress at the attachment point. I did get his arm up all the way. Let's test the other side. Is this one going to go up? Okay, there we go. Not too much stress. It is actually not even really touching the shoulder between the shoulders, and here we've got a nice gap there. I was a little bit worried about how tight this was all going to be, but yeah, not that we're going to put them in this pose, but it's nice to see how the articulation is going to go. So let's have a look. Very good at the elbows. I'm actually trying to move his arm back down, and his elbow is moving there very nicely. He's got some really good movement there. I like it when I can get the hands very close up to the chest, particularly for two-handed weapons like the Clone Trooper blaster rifle, things like that. It works really well. He's not going to be able to do exactly the same sort of knuckles together pose from the artwork just because of the way that the hands are. We're not going to get those knuckles lined up exactly, but we can probably get something pretty close, because of how well, yeah, so we can get his hands to basically touch and hold the same thing. So that's kind of cool. We can kind of do that pose there with the articulation we've got here. Everything I would expect. I was a little bit worried. Sometimes the bulkier figures, you know, they're not as lithe and flexible as a slender character, but we've got some really nice articulation here, which of course, very good for posing. Black Series make awesome poses. Okay, so we've got pretty good range of movement through the chest, a little bit creaky, and pretty good there with the neck as well. I can turn it around, do some quirky expressions there, of course. I think that that's fun. And we've got some really good sculpting there on that ribbed neck seal in there as well. It's black, it's a little bit hard to see, but I like that detail there. Okay, so he doesn't really have that much armor around the top of his hips. It's pretty free to move. Of course, he doesn't have, say, the drop boxes that we see on Stormtroopers in the original trilogy, so we don't have sort of anything hanging down that's potentially going to get in the way. So I'm expecting that we're going to have pretty good movement here, and we've got that rotation at the upper thigh as well, so we can really get adventurous with some of the moves that we can do. Very nice there. And back with the knee. I really like Clone Trooper armor. It works so well for action figures. All the joints just kind of work behind this knee plates, hiding the join here. The articulation at the top of the thigh is hidden behind the armor here. It works so nicely. It just looks, I can barely see toy joins. You've got to really look sort of in the back on like the black here, but yeah, you're not really spending that much time looking at the back of your figure. And we've got good articulation at the ankles. And like I said, he's just a nice sturdy figure. I can just put him there and he stands up. I love that. I love that. So, good movement. I like the range of articulation, good for posing. I'm not too adventurous with how I display my figures. Generally speaking, I'm going to have them standing straight up with most of their accessories on their body or held in their hands. So this works very nicely for me. He's not as acrobatic as some characters, you know, he's a bit more of a sort of not, well, don't want to say big brute, but he is a big character. He's not, you know, he's not doing flips and acrobatics a lot. So there we go. I think he looks fantastic. It doesn't have quite as much paint details as some of the other Bad Batch characters, but of course that is the show design. Very nice. I like the detail of those skulls. Very fine detail, but very, very, very cool there. Okay, so I'm going to quickly take a look at his accessories and we'll get him all assembled. So now we've got the backpack up the right way there. Plain grey, we've got weathering on here as well, and we've got some fine detail points. That detail on the back of his backpack even has the skull in the center. We've got some very fine red and blue buttons painted here. Very small detail. So the red dot here is a little bit off center of the sort of sculpted piece. The red is sort of touching on this edge and a little bit further away, but very, very minor. We've got a nice sort of T-shaped peg hole, so it's only going to go one way up. His back does look very plain, but of course it's going to be completely hidden when we get his Clone Trooper backpack on. And yeah, that really just sort of adds to the overall heft of this figure. And he's sturdy, so that doesn't even faze him when standing and posing him. Very nice. Okay, so we've got this big plastic holster here for his knife. I'm hoping that this is going to work just as well as his mercenary gear version, because that one does also have the same accessory. So we've got a large knife here. It's painted with a metallic silver and a plain hilt. We have got a little bit of paint loss here. It looks like a scratch on this edge. That's a little bit of a shame. To be honest, I probably won't pose it. I won't pose Wrecker with this knife in his hand. I know that this is just simply a minor flaw with my specific version. That's not going to be common across the range. Let's have a look and see how well he's going to hold it, and then we'll stow it in his holster on his leg. So let's see how well he's going to hold this one. Okay, as expected, holds that very nicely. That looks like a huge knife in his hands, but of course it is well scaled to him. He is a big guy. Very cool. And we can get some fun poses there with his knife. I like the metallic finish of it, very nice. Okay, so let's just take that back out of his hand and he'll let go. There we go. Okay, so let's see how well we're going to fit this into his tiny little slot here. Okay, little tight, but there we go. It fits in there very nicely. Very well. Nice. I like it when figures come with accessories that can actually be stored on the body in some way, that we don't have to worry about losing them or just having them sitting on the shelf beside them. Okay, so let's get his Clone Trooper blaster rifle in his hands. It's pretty standard. We've seen this accessory with several of the other Bad Batch and other Clone Trooper Republic Commando characters. Very nice. I like this gun. I think it looks really cool. So we're going to see how well he's going to hold this one. He does have a trigger finger, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to get it looped into here without too much trouble. Okay, there we go. Very nice. That went in straight away. And of course, he's strong enough that it almost just looks like a blaster pistol in his hand. Usually this is a two-handed weapon, but he's such a big guy. You can kind of get away with him just holding it with one hand. I'm just going to very quickly see if I can get him into a two-handed pose. Okay, so I'll spend a little bit of time later sort of getting his hand grip in there, but in terms of the actual position, I can very easily get his hand there for a two-handed pose. It just takes a little bit of time to kind of open their hands up a little bit and grip around the base of that. But yes, I'm sure that that will be a fairly easy pose to do. And he definitely looks very cool holding his Republic Commando style blaster rifle there. So last but not least, we have his iconic Clone Force 99 Bad Batch helmet. So of course, the Bad Batch all have very unique helmets, and Bad Batch Wrecker from season 1 is no different. Okay, so we've got this really cool white, sort of, it's not quite a skull, but definitely reminds me of a skull with the detail here. I really like that. The camera's having a bit of a trouble trying to focus on this one. I'll move Wrecker in the background so we can take a closer look. There we go. Okay, so we've got that sort of 99 written. It's almost like wet paint or blood with the drips there, and we've kind of got like this sort of skull teeth motif going on here. Overall, it's fairly tidy. It is supposed to be sort of a weathered, it's got a little bit more of a hand-painted feel on the show, so that is well represented here. I am a little bit worried about how this one feels a little bit more narrow and a little bit more pinched in. He's got a very sort of round-shaped head. I'm a little bit worried. This might be a little bit tight. It is not as rubbery as I was expecting. There is a little bit of give, but this isn't rubbery like some of the helmets are, so that you can kind of get them on and off a little bit easier. So I'm not too sure how well this is going to go on. So let's give it a try. He doesn't have too much paint on his face, mostly his lips and eyes. So I'm not too worried about scratching face paint off. He doesn't have hair to scratch, but I don't like it if I feel like I'm going to break something or, you know, do damage or misform a character by putting the helmet that is designed to fit on them on their head. I know that Wrecker kind of sometimes wears his helmet kind of, you know, perched on his head, but I'm already seeing this hitting his ears as I'm pressing down. So I'm going to kind of give it a bit of a squeeze from the front to the back. Okay, so it's creaking a little bit, I think. Is that going to be as far down as I'm going to get it? So I can kind of get him to look right. if I tip it up, I can kind of see his chin under there. So I haven't got it on all the way, but that feels like about as far down as I'm going to get this particular helmet. I know that subtle variations in the plastic means that mine just might be a little bit tighter than normal. And if I kind of tilt his chin down, I do get the look that I'm going for. He has got this very high ridge around the neck of his chest armor. So it does kind of lean into his helmet and give him that sort of bodybuilder physique shape to his armor. So I don't mind that. I don't know how easily that will be to get on and off the figure. That's another point in question. But overall, I think he looks so cool. This is a great figure. I like it. Very cool. I like how sturdy he is. All of the accessories fit really well. I think it is a good representation of his appearance in the animated show. I know there must be a little bit of an interesting task and challenge for the Hasbro sculpting team, taking some of the slightly exaggerated animated style characters and accessories and translating them into something that's going to fit with the Black Series line. I think this looks really cool. Very, very close to what I think of when I think of a Black Series version of this character. Not exactly the sort of not quite cartoonish, but he does have exaggerated proportions on the show. I think this is a good interpretation of him in a realistic way. I think that that's really cool. And of course, I also have the mercenary gear version from season 2. So I was actually kind of curious because some of the versions have basically repainted armor, you know, like in fitting with the show. They just kind of repaint it so they're not so recognizable as clone troopers. But this one is actually, I can see already, if I put his arms down, I can see a lot of differences with the armor here. And already we can see some differences here. So I've just got to put his helmet off to the side and we can bring these guys up closer so we can take a closer look because, wow, this is not a repaint. There is a lot that's different here and I can see this going on already. The entire chest piece is different. He's got this kind of, it's almost like the Mandalorian vest. He's got a whole green vest. So his chest is much more pronounced on this version. It comes out further and we've got this whole extra green bit sculpted underneath. He has different shoulder pieces. He has sort of like a double plate over here. Definitely multiple layers on this one here as well. I think the forearms are the same. I can see some detail lines that look very, very similar. The ab plate and the belt is completely different here. Obviously, this one has a full holster for his blaster rifle there as well, which obviously he doesn't have a way to holster his rifle there. The holster for the knife looks to be pretty much the same, just in a subtly different color, I think. And looking at the legs of the two of them, I think the legs are the same. I can see a few, it's useful having the weathering on this sculpt so I can see the differences there. And the boots look the same, just painted differently, obviously. And the armor plates, I can see the subtle scratches and things like that. They're accented in different ways. This one's got dark gray and light gray, brown boots. This one's all that same gray color there. I can see those same 2 scratches here on the thigh that I can see here. So I believe most of the legs are the same. The cod piece is different. And basically, yeah, from the hips up, I think the biceps and the forearms are the same, but the shoulders are different. And if I can get this off, let's have a look and see. Oh, there we go. Okay, I think that's the same sculpt, but this one has much darker eyebrows. When I'm just comparing them side by side, you know, a subtle variation in the factory maybe, or whether that's very, very deliberate. You can kind of see this one has much darker eyebrows than this one. The rest of the paint looks the same. The sculpting looks the same on the face, which I like because I like that smirk for Wrecker. I think he looks really cool. But that's really interesting, just seeing, I love getting figures side by side with a sort of a variation version. It was really interesting comparing some of the other Bad Batch figures with their season 1 and season 2 mercenary looks. And we can take a look at their helmets as well. So of course, very different in his mercenary gear. They have repainted their armor, so his helmet is repainted as well. But this one looks less pinched in. This one looks very sort of narrow and pointed here at the top. This one's much more rounder. I don't know if that's just a quirk of the manufacturing process or whether they have retooled this. It does have all the same sort of details, but there is just something that's very more pinched in about this one and very rounder about this one. And they're both quite firm. But yeah, I think this one is more of the shape that I think of Wrecker's helmet. It is much more rounder. This one is just a little bit narrow. I do like the way that it looks like when it's on him, but I do like the shape of this one a little bit better. Even if it feels a little bit more blank, not having that 99 detail, but of course he doesn't have that on his mercenary gear. So, wow, this is really fun. Of course, I love their iconic Season 1 Bad Batch, Clone Force 99 gear with that awesome color scheme. But there was something about their mercenary gear from the show that just had so many colorful details. I really liked the colors that they brought in with that second season. We've just got so many different colors going on here. Yellow, orange, green, brown, gold, black, white, everything going on. So this one definitely looks like a clone trooper. This one looks less like clone trooper armor, even compared to the variations of the Bad Batch. But this was so much fun. I love seeing the figures finally in hand, comparing them, looking at all the details. They both stand fantastically. I'm going to have a lot of fun posing these ones. And now I can finally assemble the entire Bad Batch in their original Clone Force 99 armor from Season 1, now that I finally have Wrecker out and unboxed. So I'm very, very excited. Still have quite a few figures from the Bad Batch line of Black Series 6-inch figures to go through. Still got a couple of the other mercenary and some of the other characters to go through, but I'm having so much fun. I can't wait to open those ones up as well. I'm sure there's going to be some fantastic details to take a closer look at. So there you go. Wow, I had a lot of fun. I really like Wrecker. I think he is such a fun character. I'm so happy that we have not one but two versions of him in the Black Series line. Now Hasbro just needs to make him in the 3.75-inch action figure line. They really do need to hurry up and make more Bad Batch figures for the vintage collection line in general. I really want more to add to my 4-inch collection. Fantastic. I think this looks really cool, and like I mentioned earlier, I can hear Wrecker's voice when I look at these figures. I think the face sculpt is amazing. I love these figures. So fantastic. A little bit of a shame that yes, he does cost more because he is a deluxe figure, but when you hold him, there's just so much more plastics to this than say Omega from the standard line. So I do understand the higher price point, but I think it's worth it. So much to love about this Wrecker figure in both formats from Season 1 and Season 2. I had a lot of fun. So many awesome details there. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today as I opened up another Star Wars Black Series figure and had a lot of fun. I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the galaxy, and let's hang out again soon for more Star Wars fun. May the Force be with you. If you're a fan of the Bad Batch, I recently unboxed the Echo Mercenary Black Series figure. That video is linked here in case you haven't already seen it, as well as our whole Black Series unboxing playlist. This is the way.